In a shocking and calculated attempt to sabotage my relationship, my brother proposed to my fiancée in front of both our families during what was supposed to be a celebratory gathering. Yet instead of tearing us apart like he intended, his cruel stunt backfired in the most dramatic way, exposing his jealousy and unearthing long-standing family tensions. My brother, Mark, who is 26, used to be involved with my now fiancée Jen, who is also 26, about a year ago. They dated in August 2022, but it only lasted a month. He ended it because he felt restless in a relationship and wasn't looking to settle down. At that time, I was living in a different state, completely unaware he had a girlfriend or that Jen even existed. I met Jen when I moved back in October. We connected instantly at a bar. She truly struck me as the most remarkable woman I'd ever encountered, both in beauty and intellect. After several more meetings, we made our relationship official. By December, I felt it was serious enough to introduce her to my family at Christmas. While they knew I was seeing someone, I tend to be private about my personal life, so I'd kept details minimal until then. My parents asked to see pictures, and as my phone made its way around the dinner table, Mark saw her. He exploded, accusing me of being a terrible brother for dating his ex and demanding I break it off. I refused. When I spoke to Jen, she confirmed their brief history and explained the breakup. It took a few weeks, but Mark eventually stopped bringing it up, and I assumed he had moved past it. Then, on Jen's birthday this year, I planned a special dinner with both our families and her closest friends, where I proposed. Mark reacted, strongly again, upset about my proposal, but my sisters and I quickly intervened to calm the situation. This incident happened last weekend. Mark had been unusually quiet for the past 2 months, and I hadn't seen much of him, thinking he was keeping his distance, which I was fine with. Unexpectedly, he invited Jen and me to a family dinner at his apartment, with my parents and sisters also attending. It seemed a bit odd, but since everyone else was going, we agreed. The dinner was pleasant and casual. Afterward, we moved to the living room for conversation. About half an hour in, Mark stood up and announced he had something to say. He delivered a lengthy speech about being happy to have his family gathered for his significant moment. Then he got down on one knee, produced a rather cheap ring, and asked Jen to marry him. Jen was clearly bewildered and uncomfortable. She immediately told him to put the ring away and stand up. My dad tried to intervene, but I got to Mark first and hit him. I can't recall most of what he said next, primarily because I was too furious to listen. But it was something about wanting to prove Jen wasn't genuinely interested in me and was just trying to get back at him. Before things could escalate further, my parents hurried me out, promising to talk to him. It's been a few days and I'm still incredibly angry. I'm unsure how to proceed, and I worry Jen might reconsider marrying me because of this. Thank you for taking the time to read and respond. I've been going through the comments from last night and this morning, and many valid points were raised. There haven't been any further developments, as the only people I've spoken to since that dinner are Jen and my younger sister. I want to clarify a few things that came up in the comments. First, Jen and I are newly engaged. It was one of those feelings where we both knew we were meant for the long haul, and despite the speed, I'm certain about her. Second, when we met, I was the one who approached her, not the other way around. Whether she knew or suspected we were related, I don't know. I asked her after learning about their past, and she said she had no idea. I had no reason to doubt her then, but I admit Mark's seemingly exaggerated reaction now does raise some concerns. Third, I had no idea she and Mark had dated when I first met her. Mark and I aren't close at all. We drifted apart as we grew up and spoke less and less. Before I moved back, we barely talked except for special occasions like birthdays. Jen knew of my family, but not much detail until I was ready to introduce them. When she and Mark saw each other again, I didn't sense any lingering feelings from either of them. She treated him politely, not like a stranger, but she certainly wasn't overly affectionate. Fourth, I was told their relationship lasted only a month. I didn't think I needed Mark's permission to propose to her, but perhaps I was mistaken in that assumption. That being said, I plan to speak with Mark this weekend to lay everything out and understand his perspective. It's my fault for not asking for his side of their past relationship sooner. Update 1. I called Mark and asked him to meet me at my place to talk. I mentioned I'd prefer Jen to be there as well, but it was fine if he preferred not to have her. He agreed to meet with both of us and arrived around noon today. After a few minutes of quiet, I began the conversation. I apologized for not warning him about my proposal to Jen and for hitting him. He said it was okay but appreciated the apology. I then shared what Jen had told me about their relationship and breakup and asked him to confirm if it was true. I explained that his reaction throughout this whole situation seemed extreme, and I wanted to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding their past relationship or downplaying its seriousness. He confirmed they only dated for a few weeks, and he broke up with her because he lost interest. Jen then asked if his current behavior was due to lingering feelings or regrets about ending things with her. He admitted he found her more attractive than when he last saw her, but insisted there were no actual feelings or regrets. He simply stated he didn't like seeing a girl he had dated, however briefly, with his older brother, and that as a man, I shouldn't have pursued his ex. I reminded him that I had no idea they had dated, so it wasn't a conscious decision made with their history in mind. He dismissed this, saying it didn't matter and I still should have ended things. He was adamant that if our roles were reversed, he would have done the same, which I doubted. I then asked him why he proposed to her if he had no lingering feelings. Essentially, he had been discussing it with a friend who was around when he and Jen dated. This friend suggested that Jen might have known from the start that we were related and was using me to get back at him, especially since she had supposedly been hung up on him after their breakup. He and his friend thought it would be a good idea to test this theory by having him propose to see if she would leave me for him. Jen then asked him to elaborate on why he thought she was hung up on him. He said he heard she had been asking about him after the breakup and was still frequenting the places they used to go together, so he considered it a valid assumption. For her to suddenly appear with his brother just solidified his suspicions. Jen told him she had only inquired about him once after the breakup, and that she had been hanging out at those places with friends long before they started dating, and she wasn't going to avoid them just because of a breakup. She also expressed her offense at the idea that she would stoop so low as to pursue me just to get back at him. He shrugged and offered a half-hearted apology, but said she needed to see it from his point of view. He asked her if she truly didn't know about our relation, and she told him she didn't see the resemblance until we were in the same room and that we act nothing alike, so it never crossed her mind. He simply said, "Okay." That pretty much concluded the conversation. Before he left, he told me I could withdraw his invitation to the wedding because he couldn't bring himself to support our relationship, knowing he used to date her. I told him he didn't need to worry about it, as he was most likely going to be uninvited anyway. It's been a few hours since our talk, and I do feel better. My parents aren't too happy about him being uninvited, but they understood that it was a mutual decision and likely for the best. My sisters told me they knew he didn't have a good reason for his behavior and don't blame me for not wanting him at the wedding. For now, I'm going to limit contact with Mark, and I doubt he'll reach out to me anytime soon either. Update 2. It's been a while since my last post, but several things have happened since my last conversation with Mark. I've maintained low contact with him. I haven't called him, and he hasn't called me. Our only interactions have been in family settings. Currently, my mom is upset that Mark is still uninvited from my wedding. This began with a comment made during my younger sister Sophie's 22nd birthday celebration. Her boyfriend of, I think, 4 years proposed to her at the end of the night, and we all sat around discussing her vision for her dream wedding. She talked about wanting a destination wedding and her ideas for the cake and dress. Then she casually said something like, "Teddy, I know Mark's banned from your wedding, but you won't mind if he comes to mine, right?" I laughed it off and told her I couldn't be upset about her guest list even if I wanted to. My mom gave me a strange look and asked if Mark was still not invited to my wedding. I confirmed it, and she became irritated. She claimed she thought I was joking and that I was being unreasonable for banning him from the wedding, especially since he's family. She accused me of holding a grudge just to be petty. I reminded her that Mark and I had agreed on him not attending. I then told her that this wasn't the time to discuss my wedding, as the day was about Sophie, and if Mark or she wanted to talk about it, they could call me another time. Sophie lightly criticized my mom for trying to make her special day about Mark, and my mom dropped the issue. For those wondering, Mark wasn't at Sophie's party because he apparently had to work and couldn't make it. A few days later, my mom came over to my house saying she wanted to discuss my wedding. She asked why I was so insistent on Mark not coming. She suggested I shouldn't be so insecure about Mark and Jen's past relationship and that uninviting him was going too far. I told her that Mark and I had mutually agreed he wouldn't come to the wedding, and if he had a problem with it, he could come to me directly. We got into an argument, and she stated that if I wasn't going to reinvite Mark, she wouldn't be coming either because I was ostracizing her son. I shrugged and told her if that's what she wanted, she could discard her invite because I wouldn't beg her to be there. She asked if I would really be okay with her not attending, and I told her it wouldn't be the first time she missed an event of mine because of Mark. She accused me of being a jerk for bringing up her past mistakes and stormed out. I then started receiving messages and phone calls from her and a few other family members, all telling me I was wrong and urging me to invite Mark back just to keep the peace. Jen has also been getting messages from my mom, asking her to talk to me and convince me to change my mind. But to my knowledge, she hasn't been responding. So far, most of my mom's side of the family is standing in solidarity with her and not attending, while my dad and his side of the family, which includes only my aunt, uncle, and their 2 children, agree with me and are still coming. My sisters are also still attending the wedding. And of course, Jen's family too. I also spoke to Mark about it and asked him if he had an issue with not having an invite. He said he uninvited himself in the first place and doesn't understand why they're making such a big deal because he still doesn't want to go. He told me to keep him out of the fighting because he's not involved, and he said he'd tell her the same thing. As of now, I'm back to being low contact with my mom, but my dad and I are still on decent terms. I'm still deciding whether I'll reinvite my mom and her family if they change their minds about the boycott, but the chances are low. And I've told my dad this too, which he understands. For now, Jen and I have started looking into downsizing the venue since the guest list is significantly smaller. Update 3. My mom made a plate of food for Jen, and I asked her if she was still planning on not coming to the wedding. She said that while she wants to, she can't get over me not inviting Mark because of a simple mistake. I reminded her that his simple mistake was proposing to my fiancé while I was sitting less than 3 feet away, and she dismissed it as just a joke. Jen asked her why she wanted to talk if she was maintaining the same stance on Mark attending the wedding. My mom said she wanted to talk to Jen, hoping Jen would listen and convince me to invite Mark again. She apparently assumed I was at work and she'd be able to catch her alone. Jen politely told her that while she understood her reasoning, she wouldn't have had that conversation without me present since it involved my brother. My mom then made a comment implying Jen was spineless and couldn't have a conversation without me thinking for her, which ignited a pretty heated exchange among the 3 of us before Jen told her to leave. My mom got up and started walking toward the door, with Jen following her, still yelling. At this point, she was screaming about Jen tearing our family apart. As Jen was unlocking the front door, my mom grabbed her hair and pulled her to the ground, still screaming. She hit her and tried to scratch her face. I dragged her off Jen and threw her outside. She banged on the door for a few minutes while I made sure Jen was okay. Then she left and called both of us repeatedly. Once I was sure Jen was all right, I texted my mom and told her not to bother reaching out again because we would never speak to her again. I called my dad and sisters and told them what happened as well. My dad was surprised and tried to make excuses, saying she'd been stressed about the whole situation for a while. My sisters said they knew she'd snap eventually since she's always been a bit unhinged, and they said they'd come over to make sure Jen was okay. I asked Jen if she wanted to press charges, but she declined, saying she only wanted to cut contact with her for good. I told her that part was obvious, but she should still talk to the police since she was physically assaulted. But she doesn't want my mom to get arrested. My sisters and Jen's mom came by to comfort her, thankfully, so she's doing okay. My mom is blocked on everything until Jen says otherwise. I genuinely don't know what to do now. Jen doesn't want to go to the police because she'd feel guilty having her arrested over this, but my sisters and I want to convince her to, and I'd at least want documentation in case something happens in the future. Update 4. Jen and I have read all the comments together, and we appreciate all the support. To answer the most common question about why I chose to reconnect after everything, the short answer is because I would do anything for my sisters. Charlotte wanted the entire family present for the birth of her first child, and to help her during her adjustment. She didn't want part-time aunts and uncles who would only visit her child during birthdays and holidays. She was never the type to ask for much growing up, so when she asked if I would be willing to try for her, I agreed because it would make her happy. I also think a part of me hoped that perhaps they had changed. I don't regret trying to reconcile either. My parents are still difficult, but I met the love of my life, so I consider it a win. A few people wanted an update, so here we go. Sorry if it's a bit messy or confusing. A lot has happened. We filed a report with the police, and we're told that even though Jen doesn't want to pursue anything, it's not entirely up to us to decide whether it proceeds further, but they would keep our preference in mind. We provided some pretty strong evidence of the assault, including pictures of Jen's face and texts with my mom and dad discussing what occurred. We were advised to report and record any other incidents with my mom going forward, just in case. Considering where we live, I doubt it will go anywhere, but at least we have it on record. The fact that I received about 100 angry text messages tells me they at least spoke with her regarding the incident. My mom tried to corner me as I was leaving my job and screamed at me about trying to ruin her life. She kept yelling that I was a terrible son for trying to get her arrested over a small misunderstanding, and that she didn't understand what she'd done to deserve such punishment. I told her that if she didn't like being in legal trouble, then she shouldn't have hit Jen. She demanded I tell the police to drop the report, which I refused. I told her exactly what the officer said about it being out of my hands. She threw a tantrum in the parking lot and hit me a few times, just on the chest and arm, before security intervened and escorted her off the property. I had to talk to my boss about the incident. Luckily, she was understanding of everything going on after I explained the situation. When I got home, I told Jen what happened. She was upset and asked that we discuss our plan with my family moving forward. It was a long talk, but we took the advice of some Redditors and decided to go completely no contact with my family, aside from my sisters. We agreed that having them in my life was adding unnecessary stress for both of us, and we aren't even married yet. She told me she wanted to consider moving away and putting some distance between us and my family. She said that she tried to stay out of my family issues because it wasn't her place, but she refused to put up with my mom's behavior or my dad enabling her abuse. Much more was said, too much to include in this post, but I agreed with her that they were more trouble than they were worth, and I also don't want to deal with this anymore. I also agreed to go to therapy, and she's helping me find a therapist. I decided to call my dad after our talk and let him know I would be going no contact. He didn't answer the first time I called, so I left a message asking to have a long talk. When he called back, he asked if it was okay for my mom to be part of the conversation. I told him it was okay since she needed to hear what I had to say, too. The conversation went about as well as you could expect. I told them both that Jen and I were cutting them out of our lives. My dad demanded to know why I would do something like that after going through all the trouble of repairing our relationship. I told him that this entire situation with Mark has shown me that nothing is actually repaired between us. And as far as they're concerned, the world revolves only around my mom and my younger brother. I told them that their continued favoritism of Mark has brought our relationship to a point of no return, and that I wasn't interested in holding on to a failing relationship. I told them that I agreed to reconcile for Charlotte's sake, but I don't appreciate all of the disrespect towards me and Jen, and that I wouldn't put up with it anymore for both of our sakes. To my mom specifically, I told her that I was tired of her using me as a scapegoat for her poor parenting and Mark's attitude. I also told her that I would never forgive her for what she did to Jen and what she did to me and my sisters growing up. She started to say how I should move on like my sisters have, but I cut her off and told her that she should accept their forgiveness and move on because she would never receive it from me, especially after everything she's done these last few weeks. She started crying and asking me how I could treat her like such a villain. I told her she could only be upset with herself because I've done nothing wrong. She cried harder and told me how much she regretted having me and how I've only tried to ruin her life. This started a heated argument between her and Jen once again, and Jen told her, in much more colorful words, that she was disgusting and plenty of other unsavory names for saying something like that to me. I don't know if she left the room or just decided to shut up, but my mom stopped talking when Jen was done speaking to her. My dad said he wasn't okay with being shut out of my life and asked me to try to understand my mom's point of view. He said that she was also struggling because her kids were at odds, and I was being unfair to punish her for her struggles with raising and caring for us. The last thing he said was that we were a family, and I shouldn't let past mistakes stop us from moving forward together. I told him that the only person she ever cared for was Mark and herself, and there was nothing he could say or do to make me change my mind. I told him that it was up to him whether to keep my number, but I would be blocking him and my mom everywhere, and I wouldn't be reaching out again. Then I hung up. Afterward, I sent a lengthy email with a link to my posts, attached to my entire family, uninviting everyone except my aunt and uncle and my sisters to the wedding. I hadn't cried in a long time, but Jen held me while I cried after writing the email, and she assured me we would be okay. My sisters also reached out to me after reading the email. I apologized to Charlotte for not being able to continue reconciling like she wanted, but she told me it was okay, and it's not my fault I had to cut them off again. The response from my family has been pretty mixed. Some are angry I aired out family issues on a public internet forum, while others are furious with my parents because they never knew it was this bad. The last person I talked to about everything was Mark. He asked if I was cutting him off too, and I told him I wasn't, but I wouldn't be going out of my way to reach out to him either. He didn't argue and just wished me the best with the wedding, and we haven't spoken since. Right now, Jen and I are looking for a new place to live. The plan is to move closer to Jen's brother. He lives about 3 hours from where we are now, and Jen and I like the city he's in. I spoke to my boss about transferring, and Jen is looking into the option of working 100% remotely, or possibly finding a new job. Once again, our venue has changed since the guest list is significantly smaller. My boss is considering letting us use his lake house for our wedding. I don't plan to post any more about this unless something truly extraordinary happens, at least not until the wedding, because I want to move on with life, but I'll try to answer any questions some of you might have. Update 5. I now have a wife and a newborn daughter. We found out Jen was pregnant around the time of my last post, which pretty much kicked us into overdrive as far as moving away and starting fresh in a new place. I was able to transfer to a different location, and Jen found a new job here that allows her to work remotely. We got married 4 months ago at her brother's lake house. We didn't plan to have the ceremony so soon, but we both didn't want to wait for the baby to arrive to get married. Jen also found a dress that she fell in love with and didn't want to get too big to wear it. It was a small ceremony with mostly her family present, but my sisters, aunt, and uncle did attend. I know some people probably wanted to hear about a huge blowout at my wedding, but it was easily one of the best days of my life. My daughter was born early last month. She's beautiful, happy, and healthy. Jen's also doing okay. The last stretch of the pregnancy was hard for her, both emotionally and physically, but since giving birth, she's been doing better. She's seeing a doctor regularly during this postpartum phase due to complications she had during the pregnancy, but so far there aren't any major health concerns for her. Besides complaining about the doctor visits, I don't think I've seen a frown on her face since we brought our daughter home. As for my parents, I haven't heard from my dad, but my mom did reach out a few days after the wedding. Apparently, my uncle sent them some of the photos they took at the wedding. My mom made a fake Facebook page and started spamming Jen and me with angry messages about excluding her from both the wedding and from Jen's pregnancy. She went on a lengthy rant about being entitled to be part of her grandchild's life and about how unfair it was that she wasn't allowed to be present in our lives. She asked to come visit us, demanded we visit her, and even asked to be in the delivery room, all of which I quickly shut down. I screenshotted everything and emailed it to myself in case I'd need it for a future post. Then I blocked her. I haven't heard from her since, but I know she's been harassing my sisters to get us to talk to her. I don't know what, if anything, they're doing about it, but I did make it clear that we have nothing to talk about with her. For everyone wondering if Mark and I have been in contact, the answer is yes. He called after we came back from our honeymoon and congratulated us on the wedding and pregnancy. We did have a long talk about everything that happened. I won't go into detail, but we both got to say a lot, and he did offer both me and Jen what feels like a sincere apology for what he did. We've been in touch here and there since we talked. It's mostly just small talk and life updates, but he did invite me to have a drink with him next time I'm in town. I don't know if I'll accept it, but I told him I'd think about it. Thanks everyone for the support and well wishes you've all given us. Sorry if this update was all over the place. Edit. Just to clear it up before anyone asks, Mark doesn't know where I live and likely won't know in the future. If he chooses to give updates about my life to my parents, that's his choice. I won't give him any details that could help them show up unannounced. Unfortunately, even if we are able to form some sort of relationship, I'll never be able to fully trust him.